Hey there, and welcome back to my list of the top 10 characters that I'd like to see as DLC in the one platform fighter that has this thing in it. This video is part 2 of my list, so if you haven't seen part 1 yet, you can use that little card in the corner or the link in the description to go and watch it. Or not, I guess. I'm not your dad, do what you want. Last time I did this, I talked about 5 characters that I would be happy to see join Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl. They were characters that I could easily see myself playing as so long as their playstyles clicked with me. But this video is not about those characters. This video is all about the characters I would make myself like playing as. The following 5 characters have been some of my most wanted since the day All-Star Brawl was revealed to the world. These are the guys that I would gladly spend some cash on just for the opportunity to smack Danny Phantom around with them. These are the top 5 characters that I want to see join Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl. I suppose I should mention one final bit of context here. The main thing that separates this half of the list from the previous is that all of these characters come from shows that I actually grew up watching. I have some amount of nostalgic connection to everyone I'm going to talk about here. I bring this up now because even though I've seen a good handful of episodes from each of these series, The Fairly Odd Parents is the one where that nostalgic connection is most tenuous. What can I say? I like the Jimmy Timmy Power Hours more. Like Chalk Zone from part 1 of my list, The Fairly Odd Parents is another series which was first shown off on Nickelodeon's Oh Yeah Cartoons block back in 1998. In it, we were introduced to an average kid named Timmy Turner and his not-so-average fairy godparents, Cosmo and Wanda. The success of this pilot led to the creation of a full series which was all about how Timmy will make a wish to Cosmo and Wanda that ends up backfiring in some way. This leads into the rest of the episode, where Timmy ends up reversing the effects of his wish, usually while learning a life lesson along the way. It's a premise that's as simple as it is charming. Okay, so there are 2 main reasons as to why Timmy's here. The first of which is that he can wish for literally anything.
We're magic! Ooh!
Which naturally means that he could fight in any way the developers want him to. Look, I know this is the 3rd character I've used this reasoning on, but just imagine Timmy being able to pull a wide variety of weapons out of his series' iconic poof clouds during combat. Or better yet, imagine Cosmo and Wanda hanging out at his side during the fight before changing into whatever weapon he's using to attack his opponents with. Either scenario is too good an opportunity to pass on. Which leads nicely into the other reason Timmy's here. Simply put, the All-Star in Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl's title feels wrong without him being present in the roster. Back when I was a kid, Timmy was one of Nickelodeon's biggest stars, and he always appeared in the network's big crossover games like Nicktoons Unite and Nicktoons Battle for Volcano Island. The Fairly Odd Parents is one of the most iconic Nicktoons ever made, and even though it wasn't one of my favorite shows growing up, it is undeniably one that deserves to be in this game. Timmy's stage would take place on the outskirts of Fairy World, and would come complete with cameos from some of the series' main fairies. I spent a lot of time talking up Timmy's inclusion on this list, but fortunately for everyone's sake, this next character series is one of a select few which truly needs no introduction. SpongeBob SquarePants is a show about a perpetually happy fry-cooked sponge living in the city of Bikini Bottom, wherein he embarks on many comedic misadventures. This is the part of the video where I could go on to talk about the effect that this series and its creator, Steven Hillenburg, have had on Nickelodeon and popular culture as a whole. But let's be honest, if you're the type of person who cares enough to watch a video about potential DLC picks for a Nickelodeon platform fighter, then you're already fully aware of all of this. The real question for this section is which character from the show do I want to see in All-Star Brawl? We already have 3 SpongeBob characters in-game, in the form of the Yellow One himself alongside Patrick and Sandy. So what 4th character is it that I want to see join? Is it Mr. Krabs, SpongeBob's boss who's as much a penny pincher as he is a practiced pugilist? Is it Plankton, the persistent patty pilferer who also serves as the series' main antagonist? Is it Larry, who is in fact a lobster?
I work out.
Nope, none of them. It's actually SpongeBob's painfully pompous neighbor himself, Squidward Tentacles. In the show, Squidward is the sarcastic bitterness to contrast against SpongeBob's childlike joy. The two of them play off each other so well that they're like the undersea versions of Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck. What I'm saying is, to have SpongeBob without Squidward feels weird. This cephalopod would fit in All-Star Brawl perfectly well, as he would not only round out the main Bikini Bottom trio, but he would also bring a new playstyle to the game. With those long stretchy limbs and his signature clarinet, I could see Squidward filling the role of a Dulcim type character quite well. Hey, Future Payton here. While I was working on this half of the list, a new update for All-Star Brawl was released. It added voice acting and items, which is great, but one of the items they added may have affected Squidward's chances because they added his clarinet. Now, it's easy to see that and say, oh, this means there's no way he's getting in. But they also added the Fenton Thermos and Krabby Patty as their own items, which Danny and Patrick already use in their movesets. So, while this could mean Squidward's less likely, I still think he's got a chance, and I still want him regardless. Okay, back to the video. Also, he's got to have one of the most obvious victory screens out of any possible newcomer. Squidward's stage would take place on the roof of his very own house, with SpongeBob and Patrick's homes being visible as well. This stage really felt like it was missing, didn't it? Let's go back to basics with this next pick. You know who would make for a good fighter? A superhero, or a supervillain. Nickelodeon's had their fair share of characters like these over the years. I mean, we just got one of them in this current wave of DLC. But there's still one super from Nick's history who has yet to join All-Star Brawl. Meet Manny Rivera.
Better known as... Beavers! Son of the legendary hero.
One Potato!
Grandson of the evil supervillain.
Oh my Rocko!
First seen in 2007, Manny is perhaps the most realistic depiction of what a kid with superpowers would be like. Growing up in Miracle City, Manny is the latest in a long line of supers who's torn between using his powers for the greater good or using them to do whatever he wants. He's got a good heart in him, but he also likes breaking the rules every now and then. You know, like a real kid does. Even though Manny is still trying to figure out exactly what he wants to be in life, he's already got one thing down for certain. Whenever he's in his LT Gray outfit, he knows how to rumble with the best of them. From his retractable claw hands to his unmatched speed, Manny was born to brawl, and that alone is enough of a reason for me to want to include him on this list. But then you have to consider his series art style, which would translate beautifully to 3D. I know this because series creator Jorge Gutierrez later went on to direct the movie The Book of Life, which still has one of the most striking art styles I've ever seen in an animated film. All these reasons, and me just really enjoying Manny as a character, are why he's placed third on my list. Manny's stage would take place in Miracle City, with the city's towering volcano in the background. Watch out for whenever it erupts and lava starts to fall from the sky. You know what's funny about me making this list at this moment in time? I started to work on it after we found out a Jimmy Neutron character was coming to All-Star Brawl, but I'm releasing it before we can actually play as them. Kinda strange. Jimmy Neutron the television series premiered in 2002 on Nickelodeon, but Jimmy Neutron the character was first seen in the 2001 movie named after him. Or if you want to get technical, there was also the 1998 pilot for a show that was pitched to Nickelodeon called Runaway Rocket Boy. Or if you want to go really far back, there was also the original 1995 demo for his show where his name was Johnny Quasar. Turns out that the idea for Jimmy Neutron had been floating around for a while before his movie hit the silver screen. But when it did, people loved it, including yours truly. Jimmy Neutron already had a relationship with Nickelodeon spanning several years by the time his movie was released. And it's because of that film and subsequent series success that I'm not at all surprised to see we got a Jimmy Neutron character as DLC. If anything, I'm surprised that it took until the DLC for us to get one. But I'm even more surprised by what character from Jimmy Neutron they went with. I'll just come out and say it. Much like Nigel Thornberry, Hugh Neutron is a meme pick, through and through. Because of that, I have to respect the devs for convincing Nick to let them put Jimmy Neutron's dad of all characters in-game. But this is where I'm gonna let my bias show. Remember how I said, The Fairly OddParents is one of the most iconic Nicktoons ever made, and even though it wasn't one of my favorite shows growing up, it is undeniably one that deserves to be in this game. Yeah, well, everything I said about The Fairly OddParents applies here too, and I actually really liked Jimmy Neutron growing up. Now don't get me wrong, I'm all for Hugh being in this game, especially after seeing how happy it made his voice actor. But you gotta throw Jimmy in here too. He could use all sorts of gadgets from his series in combat, use a jetpack for his recovery, and call on Goddard to bark at his opponents for a taunt. Jimmy's got a lot of moveset potential, and I hope we see him join in the future so him and his dad can fight all the other All-Stars side by side. In regards to Jimmy's stage, I had to be a little more creative here since we don't know what Hugh's stage is going to be. I wouldn't want to pick something that ends up being used by him, but I think a good stage idea that would be unique to Jimmy would be taking a ride on top of the Strato XL through an asteroid belt. Think of this stage as a smaller, bumpier version of Harmonic Convergence with some extra platforms at either end of the rocket. It's almost time for my number one pick, but before I get to them, I want to shout out a few honorable mentions. These guys aren't listed in any particular order, I just wanted to make sure I brought them up at some point. Let's start with the two missing Ninja Turtles, Raphael and Donatello. The Ninja Turtles have always been a four-man group, so only having half of them in All-Star Brawl has always felt a little strange to me, even with the inclusion of April and Shredder. I already have my two favorite turtles in-game, but it would still be neat to see these guys come in at some point to complete the team. Much like All Real Monsters, Cat Scratch is another Nicktoon that stars three protagonists who all share the spotlight fairly evenly. When bringing All Real Monsters into All-Star Brawl though, the developers decided to only bring in one of the series stars with Oblina. I can't say I was a huge fan of this decision, but I do understand why it was done. Coding three characters in one has got to be a technical nightmare, so why not just simplify things and only bring in one member of a trio? I've seen this idea tossed around for Cat Scratch, where Gordon could be the one who's brought in by himself. But personally, if Mr. Blick and Waffle can't join as well, then I'd rather wait for a sequel where having all three of them is more feasible. And speaking of multiple characters in one, my last honorable mention goes out to a pair so inseparable that their series title refers to them as one entity. The Angry Beavers are from a show that I don't think I've ever seen a single episode of in my life, but I wanted to include them here for two reasons. One, a lot of people really seem to want these guys to show up, and I enjoy when fan-requested characters get added to platform fighters. Two, Nick All-Star Brawl doesn't have an Ice Climbers type character yet, and, based on my non-existent knowledge of this series, I think that Norbert and Daggett could fill that role better than any other set of Nicktoons. Alright, let's do this. Here's my number one pick for a Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl DLC character. Quick question. Does anyone else think it's odd that Avatar: The Last Airbender came from Nickelodeon? I mean, here's a network whose bread and butter is goofy episodic shows that are usually only focused on making you laugh. Then, from out of nowhere in 2005, they release a serialized show that's telling a story about a war which resulted in the near-complete genocide of an entire nation of people. I'd say that's a bit heavier than whatever was going on in the X's at the time.
Put the trophy back in the case, sir.
Avatar: The Last Airbender is my favorite animated series. So of course during the lead up to All-Star Brawl, I was looking forward to seeing if any characters from it would wind up joining the game's roster. And it turns out that some did. On October 1st, 2021, both Aang and Korra were revealed at the same time. which makes perfect sense. If we were only getting 2 Avatar characters, then those 2 were always going to be the 2 we got. But fast forward to the very next day, and a 3rd Avatar character was revealed to be joining the roster. In my mind, there was only one other character in this franchise who could possibly drum up as much excitement as either of the 2 leading avatars. And that character was... Toph. Huh, not who I was expecting. In retrospect, Toph was a great pick for a fighter. Her highly aggressive bending style lends itself to this game far better than I thought it would when I first saw her. But now that the DLC for this game is well underway, I can only hope that my ultimate wishlist character will finally get his chance to join the ranks of the other Avatar characters already in-game. That's right, I want the #1 firebender himself, Mako from The Legend of Korra. Zuko. Zuko's the character I want. If you've seen Avatar The Last Airbender, how could you not want Zuko in Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl? He's got a handful of great options for an alternate skin. He's got an elemental power that we haven't seen a lot of in All-Star Brawl. And of course, he's another character that's got a moveset which makes itself. Zuko's a versatile fighter too. He wouldn't have to rely solely on firebending to get the job done. And I could go on listing even more reasons why I think he should get in. However, nothing else I could say could match my #1 reason for wanting him in this game. I really want him to be. Please, Ludosity and Fair Play Labs, it'd be so cool to have Zuko and Aang be able to fight in a platform fighter! Oh right, his stage. While the location of the final Agni Kai may be what most people jump to for Zuko's stage, I'd go with somewhere a little bit different. I think Zuko's stage should take place on one of the Fire Nation airships from the series finale. Talk about a climactic backdrop for a fight. And just like that, we've made it to the end of the second half of my list. These 5 characters are all ones who I am actively hoping to see join Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl. So until we get word that development on this game has come to an end, these guys will always be in the back of my mind whenever we're due to get a character revealed. I've got a while to wait though before there's a chance at seeing any of these guys get in, because Hugh and Rocko still need to be released. In the meantime, why don't you go ahead and let me know what you think about my list and share your own character wish list in the comments. I look forward to seeing who everybody wants to see added into this unlikely cartoon crossover. Until then, I'll catch you later.